The Cold Omaha Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
Welcome, Giles and the Goalie Podcast, season finale of the Giles and the Goalie Podcast. I am Giles Farrell, who barely made it in today considering the mosquitoes tried to take all of my limbs this weekend. Across the table from me is Ben Remington.
Hello.
And our guest this week is our old friend from Wild Xtra, Mike Berg.
Hey, how are you doing? How are you guys doing? I promise not to swear today.
Okay. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I can just put
we actually edit this now.
The beep in over it.
You can try to make me swear. I'm not going to do it.
Okay. Fair.
It's not so willing as Mason was.
Yeah, Mason makes you work for it. But it was kind of a light week, as we were discussing here before the show for the Wild. So how did you guys pass the time this weekend? Because clearly hockey has made its way into the offseason where just about every general manager decides, hey, let's go golfing.
Pretty much. I didn't do much. So much like most NHL GMs, apparently. I didn't even file any arbitration paperwork, so I did even less than NHL GMs, apparently. So,
Mike, what about you?
Just the last week or so, I've just been spending as much time as I can outside, just enjoying the weather. It's what you do right now.
Yeah, do what you can.
It was quite lovely weather over the weekend.
Yeah,
sans the mosquitoes, as I ranted about.
Well, that's just when you go inside.
Yeah,
be antisocial.
That's the thing I hate is like they drive you to go inside, and I don't want to go inside. That defeats the purpose of being outdoors.
Yeah.
Anyway, like the light, wild news we had this week, leading off was Mikael Granlund, Nino Niederreiter filing for arbitration, which obviously, as Michael Russo pointed out, there won't be an overly long process in getting new contracts for them. There is an end point,
right,
somewhere. It's not like it's going to go into training camp like Darcy Kemper tried and then threatened to go to Russia.
I'd be interested to know what the parameters were. I think Russo mentioned in passing when he was covering on KFan last week that the Wild offered Granlund $5.8 million a year, but he didn't. I don't think he made any kind of hint as to what the term was. You've got to assume probably around a 4-year deal, give or take. So that's interesting, especially considering the money that Kucherov just got. Nino, we have no idea. So I'd be interested to know what the offers are, because I really don't have much of a clue right now. I don't know about you guys, but
if I had to guess, I right now I'm putting the over/under at about 11 and 11.25 for both of them.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think we'll see Granlund getting a little bit more than Nino. But overall, 11.25 I think is about where my break point is, and that's what I'm kind of expecting right now. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting, though. I think, if I remember correctly, I think both of them are unrestricted in 2019, so there's the possibility they may try to give one of them a short-term deal, just like a 1-year deal, to get beyond a certain $6.75 million contract sitting out there.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they. I get the feeling they're looking more long term with both of them.
I agree.
It just makes more sense to do it that way, and yeah, obviously Mikko coming off the books is going to help those two fit under the salary cap a lot. But I just feel like I wouldn't want to mess with those guys becoming UFAs. That just seems a little dicey to me. They both have pretty enticing skill sets for other teams to swoop up. So,
especially like at least Niederreiter, who was seemingly a hot trade target early on here in the offseason.
Yeah.
You let him go to free agency and you might never see him again because you get into those you can talk to the free agent period, but you can't actually exchange terms.
Right, yeah.
Or terms actually get exchanged, then that's it.
That never happens.
What a joke.
Yeah, so I think, to your point about Nino, him being the analytics darling that he is, even with, somewhat run-of-the-mill numbers for a top 9 forward, yeah, I think he would get swooped up immediately. So I'd like to see them sign him to a 4-year deal roughly. 5-year deal I wouldn't mind so much, depending on what the term was. And same thing with Granlund, and that's going to be an interesting one because he had a really good year. However, that followed very, very disappointing years, basically every season before that. So he's going to have an interesting arbitration case if it comes to that. Russo announced today that the dates, August 3rd and 4th for them respectively for the arbitration hearings. It barely ever goes to that. I don't know, do you guys think that they'll get it done ahead of time? I kind of feel like they might.
I don't see why not. There's nothing really left on the Wild's plate except sign these two guys, so now that's all you got to look forward to. So I would like to think something gets done, but I don't know.
Fletcher could be spending a month at his cabin. He could be Chucky Margarita.
He's proven me wrong just about at every turn this offseason so far.
True.
Yeah, going back to term, I think one of the things you got to look at, Ben, is a player's durability, and that's one question you're going to ask yourself with respect to Granlund and Niederreiter. I think Nino has shown himself to be very durable, and unfortunately, due to Granlund's size, there's going to be questions about that sort of thing, and you never know when Byfuglien's going to throw him on his head again. So those are a few things you need to be concerned about, and that's why I'd probably be more inclined to think they'd be looking at Nino a little bit longer term than Granlund at this point.
Yeah, possibly, and certainly there's that's why Granlund he had a career year literally, but there's so many seasons where he's missed, in the ballpark of, let's say, 10 to 20 games due to various injuries. So it's really tough to want to wrap up a guy like that. I would say longer than 4 or 5 years. I'd be really nervous about anything, even 5 years. Like I said, depending on the term, that's starting to get into kind of a red territory. I think maybe with both players, but especially with Granlund because of that, as Mike mentioned, that size.
But what makes me nervous is NHL GMs this offseason have handed out 8-year contracts like Chuck Fletcher hands out the no-move clauses. So I would hope Chuck Fletcher doesn't follow that trend, or with the no-move clauses.
Oh. Well, I don't think, and I had an exchange with someone on Twitter about this where, in order to be eligible for the no-move clause, you have to be 7 years in the league or 27 years of age, neither of which qualify for that. So I think those are on contracts where you typically see their first free agent contract, you get a no-move clause, and that's why every Wild player with a free agent contract has a no-move clause. But I think these two aren't eligible for that. I think they can get a no-trade clause, like a modified trade list, essentially. I think they can still get that at this age because they're both 26, I believe, or Granlund's 26, Nino's 25, something like that. So maybe we'll only see that, which isn't so bad. That's what Stahl got. It's just a list of like 10 teams or 20 teams, and I'm fine with that. That makes things, it's a little bit of a hurdle, but it's not completely blocking.
So what I'm hearing is somebody in the league offices is going to be explaining to Chuck Fletcher that he can't give them in the next month.
He's calling the NHL helpline, the NHL contract helpline. So NMCs, just anyone, right? No, they have to be 20. No, just give it out to anyone. No, they have to be 27, Chuck.
So yeah, that'll be something to look forward to at least by August, if not sooner than that.
I would think sooner.
The really only other newsworthy thing of the week was, I think it was Friday.
Yep.
It was Kirill Kaprizov, a Wild prospect. It was announced that he is staying in Russia for 3 years. It's still, I guess,
there's
up in the air.
Yeah, a caveat to that.
But
questionable,
It seems like it's...
It hasn't happened, but it happened.
Yeah, it seems like it's just about a done thing where he's going to be hanging around for another 3 years, which, if you're a Wild fan, not good because you were looking forward to getting him into the lineup next year. And looking at the lineup now, they could probably use him next year.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on him.
Is this like a situation where in Soviet Russia contract signs you? I mean, is that like what we're dealing with here? Because it seemed kind of weird where their GM was like, yeah, he's staying. And then the president or whatever, they tweeted out from the KHL account, yeah, he's staying. And then I saw someone else tweet a quote from Kaprizov himself, apparently, something to the effect of like, well, I have an offer to think on. It's like, well, which is it? Like, you can't just kind of dick around with that because this is kind of important stuff. And to me, I guess it's not super surprising because there was always a question whether he was going to come over or not. And if he stays there for another 3 years, I know a lot of people are really doom and gloom about it, but I don't know. It sucks. Yeah, it totally sucks. I would love to see him here next year, but if he doesn't come over until he's 23, I don't know. There could be worse situations, I guess, is how I'm looking at it. Maybe I'm just shockingly on the positive side of things, but I guess it could be worse.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that, for the Worlds, he wasn't allowed to talk to the Wild brass. The Wild brass were basically said, no, you can't talk to this kid. Only you can talk to his North American agent and his girlfriend, but you can't talk to him. That's to me that should have been a huge red flag, and maybe it was, and maybe that's why he was dangled out there for Las Vegas.
I'm a little more doom and gloom about this than you are. As I said, with the way the roster's kind of going, he struck me as a prospect the Wild really needed to get into the lineup. Not this next season, but the year after, when his last year in Russia was going to run out. And his skill set is something the Wild sorely are lacking. And then you take him out of the prospect pool, and the Wild prospect pool is very, very thin.
It's Chad Greenway.
That is about it. I mean, there's not much else.
Or Jordan Greenway.
Yeah, Jordan Greenway.
Yeah. I feel like an idiot now.
I've done that a few times.
It's still Chad Greenway.
We got Greenway and Cunnin, and then you got Eriksson Ek, who's going to be on the opening night
theoretically,
roster.
Eriksson Ek and Cunnin could be in the NHL this year. Cunnin will probably get a cup of coffee like Tuck did last year, but
I see Kaprizov coming to the U.S. in one of three ways. One, he's either going to come to his senses and either break his contract or finish it out and come over. I consider that to be quite unlikely. Another way is if he gets a long-term injury and his Russian team kind of keeps that on the down low and just allows him graciously to come to the U.S. and we get an injured player to come over, or he's going to come over at age 31, get a full no-move clause for the next 8 years at $5 million a year.
Yeah, it's tough to be optimistic about this. Like I said, is the best way you can look at it is that it's only 3 years, and he's only 20 years old, and that's really the end of the positives. From there, it's really unfortunate, and the KHL, even being the dumpster fire that it is. I mean, you had an entire team have their contracts not honored and turn into free agents, and the players are over there aren't making nearly the money they are. And so I'm hoping that's the motivation for him, is that in those, hopefully maybe in the next year or two, he becomes the superstar that, even in the KHL that we think he maybe could be, and realizes that, I can make a lot more money in the NHL. And then you get into a situation where they would buy out his KHL contract, which you don't see very much with hockey. I think we know recently here was dealing with Ricky Rubio, and he was bought out of the last year of his Spanish contract. But I'm hoping that's the situation where it's not going to be quite 3 years. You'll end up with another Chuck Fletcher buyout, this time on the good side of things, and that's how he gets over here sooner than 3 years.
And I think that's actually probably why the Russians didn't let him talk to the Wild, because what the Wild were going to go tell him is, hey, we can offer you $1 million a year for the first 3 years, and then after that's when you'll make the big money.
Right.
And they don't want him to hear that.
Yeah. No, for sure, because it was rumored that's what his extension was 3 years at about roughly $1 million a year, which is almost exactly what he would make on an NHL entry-level contract, not to mention, down the line he would make a lot more in the NHL than he ever would in the KHL. But there's something to be said for wanting to stay home, and then there's a lot of Russians that are staying home this year simply for the fact of the Olympics, because the NHL isn't participating, and how the NHL doesn't see that hurts their product is just more brain-dead promotions on the NHL's part. But Yeah, I guess that kind of it's a factor though. It's a factor. I'm sure a lot of Russians want to play in the Olympics. Why wouldn't you?
That probably had a little bit to do with maybe Ilya Kovalchuk staying behind in Russia for one more year.
Yeah.
It also more had to do with the New Jersey Devils just couldn't get him traded.
Well, I read the article. Did you read the Yahoo? Wyshynski did an article where he talked to Ray Shero about it, and Ray Shero said he didn't have a single offer for Kovalchuk for a sign and trade, and it sounded like maybe there was a team or two, and no more than that had kind of contract parameters with Kovalchuk set, but then nobody ever came to him with an actual trade deal. And for Kovalchuk, like we said, he's able to stay in Russia, play in the Olympics. Then next year when he comes over, he's a bona fide 100% free and clear UFA. So, and he's able to dictate exactly where he goes, which makes a lot more sense for him, I guess.
And he's going to play on the same team as Kaprizov, right?
I don't know.
I think they're on the same team. I believe so.
I could
be wrong.
Because I don't even know if he signed anything over in the KHL yet, did he?
I thought he signed like a 1-year deal.
Oh, did he?
Just so he could make whatever money there and then come over next year and be a free agent.
Yeah. Get 8 years and a no-movement clause. Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me if he maybe got something closer to what Radulov got last year, because Montreal was like, here, have a 1-year deal, and we'll see if you can hang around for longer than that. And
I get the feeling
maybe a couple of years, but
yeah.
Unless you're Dallas, then you just say, here, have 5 years.
I think he'd probably get closer to the other Radulov got this year, honestly. Yeah. Was it 5 years, like 5.5 or something like that for Radulov?
Blowing through this. This week? I believe it's this week. The Beauty League starts.
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys stoked? Not stoked? It is what it is.
I tweeted out earlier today that maybe I was weird for not being. I don't want to crap on it. Like, I'm not saying, oh, stupid, who wants to watch hockey? But I'm just not really all that interested. I don't know. Maybe I just feel like I need the time off from the sport of hockey. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I could take it or leave it. But I mean, it's cool they're doing it. It's cool for fans that want to see it. I'm sure it's a very intimate deal compared to an NHL game. So there's that.
It's something that I would love to get into. Unfortunately, after this week, I won't even be around in the Twin Cities anymore.
Yeah, I heard.
Otherwise, it's something I'd love to do. But
I was looking at the teams, and it's just basically everyone's friends, which is almost the Wild roster. Everyone's friends with everyone. But you basically have one team that's just an entire collection of like the 2012 Golden Gophers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
the buddies.
Yeah.
The buddy league.
All buddies, and like they play for like a
keg
trophy.
It's like
I almost said garbage
keg. It's not exactly like a keg per se. It looks weird, but yeah, it's like a keg. There's 6 Wild affiliated players in there, so I don't know. I mean, from a Wild standpoint, you'd be interested to see those guys, especially the younger guys like Mario Lucia, a guy like Justin Kloos, Alex Stalock even. It'd be interesting to see how they fare, because this is pretty high-level competition. I mean, all these guys were NHLers or AHLers at the very worst, and so it's pretty high-level stuff for just kind of a very, very glorified pickup game at Braemar Arena.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, I don't know, I'd go to it maybe if it wasn't in Braemar down in Edina, but I guess since they all live in that area,
right,
might as well put it there. I got the teams up here, and you got that Gopher team is Team RBC.
Yeah.
These are all sponsored now. I don't think they were last year.
They were.
I could be.
They were.
They were.
Yeah.
One
thing that I had noticed, I did not know that Stu Bickel was still playing hockey, and that kind of shook me a little bit.
He is in here.
Yeah.
He's on the team with Eric Halla and Nick Bukestad.
Yeah.
The Gopher team.
Right.
Everyone needs a hobby. like handing out no move clauses.
It's like a craft.
Yeah, that starts up this week. Should be interesting. I don't know. I think I saw maybe they were getting streamed.
Yeah, I think they're being either streamed or simulcast on KFan. I don't know if it's just radio or if it's actual streaming on their website. I'm hearing some deal to that effect, but I don't know. Like I said, in all honesty, I probably won't get around to watching any of it. Maybe I'll sneak a glimpse of a game or two just to see what it's all about. But, I guess it's getting bigger. There's that. If it's being streamed somewhere or simulcast somewhere, it's obviously become a little bit more than the pickup game.
Well, since we have just blown through the 3 topics that
in 20 minutes.
had, I guess I'll kind of open up the floor to Mike and kind of give your thoughts on the Wild offseason in general, because they've made some moves, but we kind of went over those in the few previous week shows, so I'll kind of let you vent or share your thoughts on how you think the team shapes up now.
I was really hoping for a better number 5 defenseman. I was really hoping for a better backup goalie. I was really hoping for more depth. And it just shows that you wish in one hand and poop in the other. That's what this has come to. And yeah, Tyler Ennis could be great, but he could also be the next Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I mean, right. We could be looking at a guy who's just never going to be the same again. It really bums me out in that respect that's going on. Then again, it saves us a little bit of money. Marcus Foligno is probably a good third, fourth winger. I mean, the way I look at it is he essentially replaces Jason Pominville. So then we get a guy like Tyler Ennis, and maybe he'll be great. Maybe he'll be our long-term injury relief player. Yeah. Who knows? It's just... I'm a little crestfallen, to be honest.
It's hard not to be. So I went over this with one of our many Twitter friends, Jarek, where he said what he would have done for this Wild offseason. So that's a pretty good roundtable topic, and that from start to finish, how would you have handled this offseason differently?
Well, I pointed out last week, like I said, I thought Chuck Fletcher handled the expansion draft beautifully with Eric Holla getting taken and giving up Alex Tuck essentially to
Vegas, yeah.
Not have a defenseman get taken. And then I felt like he kind of, fell down a cliff when he decided to trade with Buffalo.
Yeah. But it was the bat phone, Giles.
Well,
he's got the straight hotline to Buffalo.
We didn't give up another second-round draft pick to Buffalo, so there's that.
That's true. We're getting better in that regard.
Kind of holding out on trading Scandella. I think that was kind of a miss on his part. There's rumors that he was looking for a first-round draft pick plus for Scandella, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
I think he should have looked around a little bit more and just taken the best deal he could get rather than trying to hold out and trying to twist other teams' arms in that respect. And that's how we ended up with the deal we did with Buffalo.
Yeah.
Because it was rumored that Boston was maybe looking at him for their first-round pick, and
number 18.
Yeah, then it got floated that Boston was maybe trying to shove Matt Bolesky back, but nothing ever really was said who was trying to push Bolesky.
Didn't they just sign him 2 years ago?
Yeah. But he's quite bad.
Yeah.
As
he had a good playoff series with Anaheim. In that,
and he cashed in.
Yeah, and jeez.
Yeah,
okay.
And then you as you kind of said, you saw what Travis Hamonic got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see what we got for Scandella, and you just kind of go,
"What the hell happened?"
I don't watch a lot of Islanders hockey, but I think Marco Scandella is pretty up there with Travis Hamonic. I'm sure Travis Hamonic is a little better, considering the last 2 years Marco Scandella has, but the return just wasn't even close, at least to me.
Well, and the Devils got Taylor Hall for
yeah.
I can't even think of the guy's. Yeah, Adam Larson.
Who's, I don't know, probably more of a second pair defenseman.
Right.
If that, yeah. I mean, he's of the kind of the Brodin mold where he's not, he's a solid defender. He's just not going to put up any points for your team. So that was a curious trade. But I think, I don't know, from start to finish, I may have approached the expansion draft differently. And I don't know. I mean, the salary cap is kind of the the problem, because that's a reason why they cited for letting Haula go was that they couldn't afford him anymore. And he did sign a $2.7 million deal, which, I don't know, maybe is a little lofty considering you can get somebody with the same production for cheaper, but I don't know. Just and obviously, I think the Scandella deal is where it all kind of falls apart for sure. I looked at it, and they upgraded the Wild's 4th-round pick to a 3rd-round pick, and that was it. And I just think a lot of Wild fans would have felt a lot better about that deal had they got a better pick in that deal. Like, if for once, for a change, we would have gotten Buffalo a 2nd-round pick and not sent a pick back. I think that would have... I mean, it certainly wouldn't have made things all better, A-OK, everything's great, but it would have at least bridged that gap a little bit. Then, here, we're going to upgrade your 4th-round pick, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't mean much at all.
Right. I never thought of it like that till now, but...
Well, just the concept of
off the rails again.
The concept of a Buffalo 2nd-round pick going to Minnesota is very foreign to people. I understand. Like, everyone thought that was just a one-way street for the last half-decade.
Central Registry would have to clarify 5 times just to make sure that they had it right.
They just keep calling and over again. Chuck, are you sure about this?
Well, the only problem with that is that as soon as the Wild would have an opportunity to use that pick, Buffalo would be way ahead of the Wild in the standings, and so it would,
it basically would have been a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you get that pick, and then the Wild trade it at the trade deadline because they already have a 2nd-round pick next year. So
playing with house money.
Yeah.
Oy.
That's the other thing I forgot to add on to the Kaprizov discussion was the Wild prospect pool is so thin because they keep trading these higher-end draft picks, 1st, 2nd-rounders, and they really haven't replenished them. And then when you rely on a kid like Kaprizov to come over, and then he doesn't, then you're even more screwed.
Basically.
And the other thing that kills me is, last year during the draft when the Wild had 4 draft picks, only 1 came in rounds 1 through 4. Chuck Fletcher said, "Yep, we're gonna deal with this. We're not gonna trade. We're gonna let this go, and then we're just gonna keep having draft picks for years down the line." And then we get to this draft, and we have to wait for the Wild to get to round 3 to make a pick. And I have a little optimism because they picked higher skilled guys, but it wasn't exactly a strong draft, so that really lowers my expectation for them.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts on the Wild off season, or?
Well,
it feels like we have the team we're going to have for next year. So I guess maybe a question to throw out there is, what should we expect from this team next year, considering the roster that we have and maybe what some of the other teams in the division have done?
I think the Wild are going to probably finish 2nd in the division again. I think the Blackhawks are going to be angry about getting bounced this year, and they're probably going to go have a deep run next year. So, honestly, I'm not expecting the Wild to go deep in the playoffs next year. So, what they do in the regular season will just be something fun to enjoy.
Yeah, it's and I talked about the offseason is basically done, but what I said last week, and I still kind of believe it, is that this Nino and Granlund extensions are going to be possibly the most important thing that Chuck does all summer long. Certainly the trades, got all the headlines and all that kind of stuff, but keeping those guys around, whether they end up signing them to one of them to a bridge deal or if they can even afford both of them all together with the cap space that they have, considering they also have to sign Foligno. That's going to be important too. As for predictions, I went over it a little bit in my article last week, where they lost quite a bit this summer. They did get a little bit younger though, and we expect the D to maybe be a little bit better, even depending on what you think of Gustav Olofsson and Mike Riley. And the backup goalie situation can only really get better. Which is a low bar to clear, I realize, but and then from there, I feel like it's going to be a similar team, as Mike said. It's going to be a team in the middle of the pack in that playoff shuffle for the Central. But as we discovered last year, the seeding doesn't really matter. So who cares? Like, I think this team is a playoff team still. I don't think they fell from grace that hard yet. Maybe if everything goes wrong, they could. But if everything goes wrong, I mean, we saw Tampa Bay miss the playoffs last year. So that can happen to any team, really.
Statistically speaking, the Wild go deeper in the playoffs the lower their seed is. When they were 7th, they made it to the conference finals. And when they won the division, they were bounced in the first round.
There you go. Yeah. And they were a wild card both years where they went to the second round. So
yeah. That just goes to show that he can have a really good regular season and it's pretty much worthless in the playoffs.
Kind of, yeah.
And that comes back to the roster and what you're talking about, because in the end, what matters is how the Wild are built for the playoffs. Yes, Foligno gives them some size, but they also got a lot smaller with with Ennis and with a few of their other signings. Mm-hmm. And it's not like Scandella was a little guy either. I mean, Scandella's was arguably one of their best playoff defensemen. Yeah. Are you really going to expect that Mike Riley or Gustav Olofsson is going to step in and be your best playoff defenseman? Or are you going to be, are you going to need someone else to do that? And arguably that's what they need. It's not like they've got, the big brutes that are, going to play physical in the playoffs. They just don't have that right now. So it seems like the Wild Fletcher just doubled down on the get smaller, faster, quicker, sneakier. And unless you're the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't really see how that works for you.
Right.
Yeah, it's different seeing this team without, we're planning on Alex Tuck being on this team probably this season. He's a big kid. Scandella, obviously, a bigger guy. It'll be interesting to see how that whole thing plays out. I still think, and there's still one more, I think they still do have to sign a forward, and we're still kind of waiting on the Matt Cullen sweepstakes as it will. Maybe they will sign Yager. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get the legend in town himself. But I don't know. It was a weird offseason because it's really hard to gauge. And yeah, Foligno is nice. He's a big kid, but it seems like he didn't produce much either. So do you basically have an overpaid fourth liner in him, or is he the kind of guy that can take over in the playoffs and suddenly score some really important goals for you, even though we only had, say, 30 points during the regular season?
You hope Bruce Boudreau can sprinkle some of that magic on Foligno like he did with some of the players on the Wild roster this year who had incredible years. As I said last week, I wanted some kind of move because you couldn't come back with the same team, and then I got said move, and I'm complaining about said move.
And that's what I was leery of, because right after the Wild lost, there was a fair amount of us that were just like, I'd be fine with the same team again. And looking at what they lost and what they got coming in, it's like, at least on paper, and I could be way off, but at least on paper, I do like last year's team a little bit better. And I know it was really hard to keep that together with the salary cap, and that just wasn't going to happen. And especially with Vegas, it just wasn't going to happen. But be careful what you wish for. Everyone wanted change, and here you go. Here's your Tyler Ennis. Enjoy. Here's your Kyle Quincy.
Yeah.
Boy. I think just a few more questions here for Mike, just kind of our generic questions for guests, and then we can probably call it a show. So the two main questions we ask all our guests is, the first one is,
here to start the third period, what team is this? It's not Team USA. Well, yes, it is. They've got on new uniforms. They're wearing the logo of the Duck. I've never seen this before.
Like, if you could pick, any jersey, any hockey jersey you could, like, what is your favorite? Or if you can't narrow it down, like, you can do like a Mount Rushmore of hockey jerseys.
So team jersey or player jersey?
Team jerseys.
It sounds weird, but I really like the original Coyotes jerseys.
Yeah.
The Robot Coyote.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm with you on that.
And they bring those out like once or twice a year now.
Yeah.
For throwback night.
It's way better than the weeping puppy they feature regularly right now.
No, that's the Timberwolves.
Oh, the Timber Yotes? Yeah. Yeah, I would like to get that jersey. Probably like a Kachuk, I would maybe assume, or
Roenick.
Maybe even maybe even a Hobby Bullen. That would be kind of a cool one.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be a cool jersey to have. It was also featured in the Hockey by Design wallpapers that we enjoyed so much. Giles and I both shared it on Facebook and Twitter pretty copiously. So very cool cell phone wallpapers that they made out of classic 90s hockey logos.
Nice.
And then the last question that gets us all riled up is, do you consider soup to be a meal?
That's a trick question. Because clearly it depends on the soup.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hang-up we've ran into.
Yeah, if you're talking about a beef stew, I mean, you got everything there. You got your protein, your veggies, your starches. You know, if you're talking about chicken noodle, that's, you know, clearly not fulfilling. And if you're talking about something like tomato soup, which is really just runny ketchup, it's clearly inedible. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the distinction that we've ran into is that, you know, there seems to be like a lot of gray area with soup, I feel like, where, you know, you can kind of run into different classifications, I feel like. We did agree that chili was not a soup, which makes a lot of sense because it's just, it's more protein than it is broth. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting to make those kind of distinctions.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot about soup as we've come along with the guests that we had, because we just argued about just soup, and we didn't really think it through. So we continue to learn with each of the answers we get.
Well, see, much like politics, you and I were both on each end of the spectrum, and we were so far that we couldn't see the forest for the trees. And then we have all these people kind of filling that middle ground in the middle. We're like, well, hey, what about this? And what about that issue? And what about that issue? And we're like, oh, yeah, we never thought about that because we were so far on each extreme. And it's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, that...
Did you want to ask about, were we going to cover Pop-Tarts? Or?
Oh, that's right.
You teased it, so I don't know.
I did. Somebody threw it out on Twitter yesterday about Pop-Tarts, so I figured we'd bring it up just to kill a little bit more time. But
I think it's a good topic.
How do you take your Pop-Tarts, or what is your preferred flavor?
You know, I feel like there's only a handful that I really go to. S'mores being kind of top on the list, I would say. The frosted strawberry is kind of the classic. I think that's kind of the classic Pop-Tart. Another one that I'll mention that I think is good, but in you only really want to have one or two and you're kind of done with them for a while. They have a cookie dough Pop-Tart that I'm kind of a sucker for cookie dough, so maybe it's just in my lane, but that one's not bad, and I would recommend that you give it a shot. Maybe just like I said, one sleeve once in a while, but
I haven't been down the Pop-Tart aisle lately, so I'm sure there'll be some ridiculous flavors in there that I'll just go, what the hell is this?
Kofifi Pop-Tarts?
But I'm pretty original, and I'll just take the brown sugar cinnamon.
Yeah, that's a very solid one, too.
I can do it hot or cold, but most times I'm just too damn lazy to stick them in the toaster, so I just have it cold.
I feel like that one is maybe the best one cold. I don't know, maybe this is a Pop-Tart hot take. I feel like the brown sugar cinnamon one is the best one to eat untoasted.
That could be. But I'm also with the frosted strawberry. I could do that cold.
Yeah.
But preferred to have that one toasted.
Yeah, I can see that.
My go-to is frosted blueberry.
Really?
That is clearly the best flavor there is. I'm sorry you two feel this way about these things.
Well, I think, and maybe I can be off on this, and hopefully I offend somebody, but unfrosted Pop-Tarts might be the worst thing to ever be invented. What I don't understand is the purpose of them. Like, you can't be going for something healthier because you're still eating a goddamn Pop-Tart. Like, it's not like you're cutting...
There's still plenty of sugar
Yeah, you're
inside.
not cutting carbs at that point, like eating an unfrosted Pop-Tart. Like, it just... I don't understand the purpose of them. I like, are you punishing your children? Maybe it's a punishment for children that I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't know of.
Sir, if you're trying to make an enemy of me, you are failing. Because I agree completely with everything you said.
I guess I never thought of that. That probably is a good punishment for children. Like, you were bad. You get an unfrosted Pop-Tart. Bet you that kid never colors on the wall again.
No. All right. I think on that note, we can end this one.
Yeah, it kind of wraps up this week's news cycle.
Yeah. I was hoping for a little bit more newsy thing to talk about, but we were not lucky. We'll probably get it next week when we want to, start our summer vacation. But
Nino and Granlund are going to both sign extensions like on Wednesday. Yeah.
That'll wrap it up for us. Thanks, Mike,
thank you.
Yeah, for jumping on with us. And Mike is leaving us. He's moving to Columbus.
I am, yes.
We wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
In Columbus, and I hope you get in a shouting match with John Tortorella at some point down there.
I've already got January 30th circled on my calendar.
Nice. So beautiful. Just be careful for that damn cannon.
Yeah. Watch out for the cannon. I heard this one dangerous.
And that's a wrap on this year for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been fun. We're going to go into our summer hiatus and try to come up with some things.
Some better material?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, at some point, we'll have to move on from soup.
I just don't see that happening, Giles.
Yeah, there's certainties on this podcast, and soup's probably one of them. But, so thank you to all of our guests who joined us this year.
Yeah, busy year.
We had a good group. We'll obviously work on that again next year. Am I missing anything? I feel like I've missed so much that you've had to correct me so many times during the show.
I'm like your Tony Reale. No, I think that's about it. Like I said, last week was kind of the climax, and then this week is just kind of the cuddling.
Wow. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. We're out.
Later.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Minneapolis, Minnesota.
We are ducks, and ducks fly together.
That's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.